Welcome to Andy Staples on 3. It's time to run it back. One of our favorite episodes last year was the quarterback draft between myself and Jesse Simonton. Provided entertainment all season long. Our guy at Cornwit on Twitter keeping score. I think we all know who won. Yeah, that was right. It was me. I destroyed Jesse because I picked Jayden Daniels. I want to say 6th. I think he was my 5th pick. We're not gonna point out that Joe Milton was my 2nd pick. Okay, maybe I just did. But I did have Bo Nix, Dillon Gabriel, Jayden Daniels, Carson, Beck, Drake May. I had a very good team. And that is why I won 3,175 points to 2,647 points. But this is a very different year. Last year, Jesse had the first pick. We all knew whoever won the first pick. I think we did rock, paper, scissors. Whoever won the first pick was going to take Caleb Williams. I am still debating what my first pick is going to be because I get the first pick this year. I have no idea. So let's bring Jesse on. Hi, Jesse.
What's going on?
Looking.
I've got a nice hot board. If you got, the Joe Milton from the other day in his New England Patriots debut, you would have really murdered me even worse. So yeah, last year was obvious. Caleb Williams, that was a slam dunk. Somehow I had Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, Quinn Ewers, and you still kicked the hell out of me. So I'm excited to run it back and see if I can do a little bit better.
Well, our scoring system matters too, because that's one thing I was looking at when I was looking at last year's final score tally. And so Jayden Daniels, obviously number 1 overall in point production. He was great through the air and on the ground. Bo Nix was number 2. Dillon Gabriel was number 3 overall. So I had the 1, 2, and 3. Caleb Williams was number 4. Like Quinn Ewers was number 15 overall. Now he did miss a couple games, so I think that has something to do with it. But that's the part that you have to take the scoring system into account because there is no obvious first choice here. But so our guy at Cornwit on Twitter is the one who designed the scoring system. So let me explain it to everybody. A passing TD is worth 6 points. 25 passing yards is worth 1 point. A rushing TD is worth 6 points. 10 rushing yards worth 1 point. -6 for throwing a pick six. -2 for a non-pick six interception. And -2 for a lost fumble. So Jesse, I would think this does favor the dual threat guys if we're thinking about it that way.
This is like all the guys that are playing the EA college game. They're always going for the quarterbacks that can run around. I mean, that seems to be the pick du jour on most of these squads when you're seeing the online games. So it makes sense. They're the ones stuffing the stat sheet. So, JJ McCarthy last year is a perfect example. I mean, he ends up being a top 10 pick, but he wasn't, frankly, asked to do a whole lot. So this exercise, right, I think for the viewers, it's fun because A, it's a draft and we love drafting things. And B, it's not necessarily a representative of, hey, these are the top 25 quarterbacks in order. It is right. This is a fantasy football college draft. That's what this is.
That's exactly what it is. And it's more for the stat sheet stuffers than the JJ McCarthys of the world. And so I have the first pick. So
where are you going?
I'm seriously considering the scoring system here because I think my pick might be different if the scoring system were a little bit different. But I am going to go with Jalen Milroe from Alabama as my number 1 pick, and here's why. So Kalen DeBoer takes over that offense. Jalen Milroe averaged 10 yards per attempt last year. He threw for 2,800 yards. He ran for 500, but remember, sacks get deducted in college football. He probably really ran for 800 because he got sacked a lot. He had 12 rushing touchdowns. So he had 23 passing touchdowns and 12 rushing touchdowns. I think I'm going to get more touchdowns out of him through the air and a similar amount of touchdowns on the ground.
I love it. I mean, I haven't released my bold takes piece yet this offseason, but it's coming. And one of them that I have jotted down, and maybe this isn't overly bold, but one of them I have jotted down. I think Jalen Milroe is going to lead the SEC in touchdowns. So, and overall touchdowns. And so we're talking about, I think he could easily put up, a 40 or 50 burger combined in Kalen DeBoer's offense. So I love that pick. That's a great pick.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking, Tebow type numbers or Jaden Daniels type numbers if we're talking those, because that's what won it for me last year was Jaden Daniels just being a force on the ground and through the air.
I love it. I love it. Now I'm going to surprise you with my first pick.
Oh really?
I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to take Liberty's Kaidon Salter because of the exact thing we were just talking about. I was wondering about this
because I thought about it too.
This is not necessarily, the best quarterback or the NFL upside or whatever. We're talking fantasy football here. And you know who had the third most touchdowns in the country combined rushing and passing a year ago after the two guys that were on your team and Daniels and Bo Nix? It was Kaidon Salter. And the fact that Liberty's trying to get back to, they were in a New Year's Six game a year ago. They're going to ride their dude to try to earn that, coveted G5 playoff spot. They play in a cupcake league in the CUSA. So stuff in the stat sheet is not a problem for the ex-Tennessee transfer. Give me Kaidon Salter. This does, it's kind of a twofer for me. It checks my G5 box. We each have to draft one, quarterback from the G5, and then it also gives me, I think, a guy with tremendous upside.
Absolutely. Because he is going to stuff the stat sheet in Jamie Chadwell's offense in year 2. Because I thought seriously about doing that at number 1, just because, and the level of competition he faces is not going to be the same as what Jalen Milroe is going to face, and what some of these other guys that we're talking about are going to face. So, you're going to put up numbers with him. We know that, but I think you've overthought yourself. I think you've played yourself because I think you could have gotten him lower. I think you reached, and I'm going to tell you why after. We'll be right back with more of our QB fantasy draft. But first, let me tell you about Rhoback, whose name you're probably going to hear during this draft. He's a new Rhoback endorser, Quinn Ewers, Texas quarterback. That's right. Rhoback has very good taste in college athletes, very good taste in podcasts because they're here. And I tell you what, the performance hoodie from Rhoback, the most comfortable piece of clothing I own. That is why I own lots of them. Also, another reason I own lots of them, family members keep stealing them. And you're going to have that problem. So I'm telling you right now, when you order your first performance hoodie from Rhoback, order 2. The good news is, when you make your first order from Rhoback, you use the promo code Andy and you get 20% off. So that's RHOBACK.com. Promo code Andy, $20 off your first order. Performance hoodies, polos, Q-zips, joggers, shorts, now bathing suits, you name it. They got some great clothes for the ladies. Ladies, you play golf, you play tennis, Rhoback has you covered. RHOBACK.com, 20% off your first order. Remember, you're going to need extras on that performance hoodie. Back to the QB draft. And now let us explain why Jesse has played himself. Because in taking Kaidon Salter, which I agree is a good pick because of the format, the scoring format, he's going to put up tons of air touchdowns and ground touchdowns. But do you know who else is? A guy who was on my team last year. He's going to stay on my team, though in real life, he's on a different team.
You going Gabriel?
Give me Oregon's Dillon Gabriel.
I like it. I think the question is, with obviously he's a hand glove fit in Stein's offense. RPO heavy. It's the little Hawaiians back out on the West Coast, so I like that little southpaw action. I wonder if they're gonna run the ball a little bit more with Jordan James. So maybe he won't quite get the rushing touches. I'm at least fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping for now. Otherwise, that's a great pick.
Yeah, and so he had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. at Oklahoma. He also had 30 passing touchdowns. We're talking 42 touchdown guy last year. As you said, he's going to fit in this offense really well. His completion percentage was 69.3 at Oklahoma. It's going to be higher than that at Oregon. Bo Nix, I believe, completed 78% of his passes last year. This is an offense that doesn't ask the quarterback to make a lot of very difficult throws. It allows him to make some easy throws, but also allows him to get out running if he needs to. And so I think this is going to be a big, big year for Dillon Gabriel. I think there's a chance that he winds up in Heisman contention. It really is a perfect situation. And it's funny because it's not funny. It's emblematic of this era of college football. I mean, Oklahoma had to let him walk, Jesse, because of Jaxson Arnold.
You wrote a column, I think, last week about, the currency of the quarterback position. And, you're almost, again, you're leading the horse to water here for me, Andy, because I'm going to ride with an old face in a new place too. And that is one Mr. Cam Ward, because Miami has paid a whole lot of dollars to make sure that Cam Ward did not go to the NFL, that he did, find a home, get a nice apartment there in Miami on South Beach, having dinner at Prime State, and he's another guy. He's going to put up just monster stats. There's the concern perhaps that Cristobal, will handcuff the quarterback, but I think that's assuaged a little bit by the fact that outside of Damian Martinez, Miami's running back situation is kind of an issue right now. Fletcher's hurt, so if there's not a whole lot of carries going to the tailback, I think Ward's still going to run the ball a bunch. He's a guy who's put up, combined 40 touchdowns. He is if he is what Miami believes he is, a potential ACC winning, quarterback. I love this pick because they're going to ride that horse, I think, all season.
This is one of the big mysteries here is how much difference will Cam Ward make at Miami, because we keep wondering, when are they going to get over the hump under Mario Cristobal? And we're going to see, Cam Ward is going to be thrown into a situation. And look, Cam Ward's played a lot of football. He was great at Incarnate Word. He was good at Washington State. He's going to be in the swamp week 1. That is going to be an intense environment. But if he can come in there and cool as a cucumber, lead them to a win, that schedule, he could put up some big old numbers against that schedule, because other than Florida State and Louisville after that Florida game, I don't see a lot of resistance.
No, and
Virginia Tech maybe.
Virginia Tech maybe. But you're talking about a couple of the worst defenses last year in the ACC, and Georgia Tech. Now Cal, I think we'll see how their transition goes. They were actually, decent defensively a year ago. Duke lost pretty much all their best players. They're either, lost eligibility or now playing for Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. So USF, that's going to be a shootout. I like it. Miami hasn't had a 3,000-yard passer, I think, since 2017, which coincides the last year they won 10 games. So I'm banking on Ward delivering. They paid him a sizable NIL deal, and I hope we can ride that to the bank and he can help me win this thing.
All right. While we're keeping on our theme of guys who can run a little bit, this is a sneaky one. I don't know that people realize how good a runner this guy is, but I know he's going to throw for a bunch of yards. He's got one especially new target that is very interesting, but he's also returning some guys that are very good at the receiver position, at the tight end position. And that is Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. So Dart can run the ball when he needs to. I'm not sure exactly how much he's going to need to this year, because if Juice Wells is healthy, the Trey Harris-Juice Wells combo on the outside is devastating, potentially. You've also got Priest Corn at tight end, Ulysses Bentley at running back. Like, they're going to be a formidable offense. But when Jackson Dart needs to, he has proven that he can run the ball.
Yeah, I like that pick. We're talking about a guy that, I think Ole Miss returns when you're talking about Priest Corn and then, Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins. I think they had 3 guys that had over 700 yards. And then you add Juice Wells. They just picked up a kid from Utah State who transferred, at the 11th hour here because of the Blake Anderson firing. So he is surrounded in terms of weapons. So certainly like that pick. And again, you're kind of banking on the fact that Ole Miss is trying to deliver a special season. And if that happens, it's going to happen because Dart just has a monster year.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, do they ascend to another level? Well, a lot of that also depends on stuff outside of Jaxson Dart's control, because is that defensive line better? But if they're in every game, Jaxson Dart's going to be throwing darts only, as it were.
Darts only.
Have we seen a darts only from Ole Miss?
I don't think so.
Jaxson Dart's had his own issues on the internet lately.
Yeah.
You had the injury rumors. You had the girlfriend TikTok. There's a lot going on. So maybe Jaxson Dart not doing the darts only.
I would advise him to do it, though. I think he should lean in.
Yeah. All right. What is your number 3 pick, Jesse?
I'm about to poach a guy that I think you kind of had circled.
Oh no. I've been sandbagging on that. I know what you're going to say, and I don't want to hear it.
I'm heading down to lovely Clearwater or Tampa, Florida, and I'm taking Byrum Brown from the USF Bulls. We're talking about a guy who had 36 or 37 touchdowns in his first year as a starter. Alex Golish, you're talking about the layups and easy throws that your guy Dillon Gabriel is going to get at Oregon. I mean, this is the same sort of deal for USF. I mean, the Bulls, they just put up monster numbers. 1, because they can't stop anybody, and 2, because of the offense they're running. Golish comes from that Tennessee tree, so it's kind of that, almost a veer and shoot type of stuff. Brown's going to run it. Brown's going to throw it. It's honestly remarkable that he's still on USF's roster. I talked to Alex Golish about that fact. So I'm riding with Byrum Brown, and I'm saying I already got 2 G5 guys. Let's go.
Yeah, you're not leaving many for me, although I've got one, my eye on one, but I'm not taking him yet. I thought you were going to take somebody else, and I am glad you didn't. So this may end up looking like a reach by the end of the season, or this is going to look like pure genius by the end of the season. I don't know which. I'm hoping it's the second. If you've been watching the show all offseason, you know I am infatuated with this guy, that I'm fascinated by what he's going to be. I don't know if he can throw yet. I know he can run, but if he can throw, watch out. This is another quarterback who forced one of our potential national title contending quarterbacks off the roster. I speak, of course, of Kansas State's Avery Johnson. So fast, but what does the arm look like? We've seen some good throws. Remember, they were doing the kind of split the series with him and Will Howard in the middle of the season last year, but that didn't last through the season. They stopped doing it and essentially gave Will Howard most of the snaps down the stretch. But at the end of the season, they said, you know what? Avery Johnson's the guy, local Kansas guy, one of the biggest recruits we've ever signed, lightning fast. We saw him in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. He helped eat the mascot at the end of the game.
Does he have a nickname yet? Is it Sunshine, or with the long hair, or what? Like, what's his nickname?
Ooh, that's a good question. We need to I'm going to request that we get Avery on the show, and we're just going to ask him. So
AJ Jet or something.
Jet sounds awesome.
Put the initials together and add the little wheels. Here's my concern about Avery, because I love his upside. I think he's an electric talent. I had my updated top 25 come out recently, Andy, and so in that I kind of doing extra research, trying to find some interesting nuggets. I did kind of like a one thing to know about each team in addition to a little blurb. And what I found about Kansas State, which I thought was kind of interesting, there's not another quarterback on the roster that's thrown a pass in an FBS game. They have a transfer that was an FCS guy.
Quan Robertson?
They have an. I think there's I'm wondering how much they're going to rely on his legs, throughout the season, because if he gets hurt, they're just screwed. So obviously we know he can run. The expectation is that he's got, a howitzer in addition to that. So I like the pick, but I am curious about how much they're going to kind of lean on his wheels.
Taquan Roberson, by the way, the UConn transfer, is the backup there. It is a question. He's going to run. Now, like you said, the problem with that is it also means I might lose him for multiple games, which is like you lost Quinn Ewers for multiple games last year. Same thing. Like durability is something, that you got to think about. Like one of the reasons I took Milroe first is I am assuming the sacks are going to go down. Like if it's the same number of sacks as last year, I made the wrong pick at number 1. But if the sacks go down for Milroe, then I'm in good shape. There's another guy, if the sacks go down, who hasn't been picked yet, that is going to put up monster numbers if the sacks go down. Jesse, your 4th pick.
My 4th pick, I think I'm going to go a little bit more traditional here. And I'm banking on kind of a second-year leap. This is a guy that is atop a lot of these NFL draft boards. And I think, frankly, people or maybe have kind of underrated what the offense that he plays in. As I love Ole Miss's offense, but as explosive and as dynamic as everybody thinks the Rebels are, and they are, an offense that's even better, an offense that actually puts up more points, is more explosive, is more efficient. That's Georgia's. So I'm going to ride with Carson Beck because I think that year 2 in Mike Bobo's system, he had, I think, 30 touchdowns last year total. He doesn't run it much, but he did, I think, score 4 or 5 times on the ground. I think, he's surrounded by, if not maybe outside of Texas and Oregon, probably the best collection of playmakers when you're talking about tailbacks, tight ends, and then wide receivers. They have it all there. I think Georgia, believes that he's a Heisman caliber guy, and they're gonna roll with it. And so Beck, and I think in a lot of, if you were talking about QB1s for 2024, he might have gone much earlier in this draft, but because of the lack of dual threat nature, a little bit lower. But I still think I'm getting a guy that could easily throw for 35, 36 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, and if this were all about passing, I think Carson Beck would have gone number 1 to one of us. And I think
yeah, go ahead. I mean, he still almost threw for almost 4,000 yards a year ago, and this was not playing in a lot of fourth quarters. He's going to have to play in the fourth quarter at Alabama and Texas. So I'm banking on a guy who is in year 2, and then probably going to actually see even more snaps than he did, in 23.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how different their offense looks year 1 of Carson Beck as a starter to year 2, because you're right. Guys make a jump in that year, and he was very good in year 1. So year 2 could be off the charts good. And now their 3 toughest games were on the road. You mentioned at Alabama, they're at Ole Miss, they're at Texas. So he'll have to earn it if he's going to put up the numbers that we're talking about. So I kind of teased my next pick last time where I was talking about if the sacks go down, the numbers are going up and they're going to be great. Shedeur Sanders is my number 5 pick. He got, not just him, but Colorado gave up 56 sacks last year. That was obviously way too many. If you drop it by 30, then you get into like what an average team gives up. If Shedeur Sanders gets protected, he's going to put up insane passing numbers. So I will take Shedeur Sanders and hope that offensive line holds up, because this is a guy that, you look at the NFL projections, he and Carson Beck are among the top guys in the NFL draft projections. We don't doubt his arm. We don't doubt his ability to find receivers. The only thing I'm worried about is, are they going to protect him? And that's the only reason why I didn't pick him higher.
I love it. I mean, and that they're going to do everything they can to inflate his stats too. I mean, that's kind of the underlining thing with Colorado's offense. It is built around Shedeur Sanders to make sure that the Shedeur Sanders show succeeds. And so if the O-line does have a pulse this year, obviously they signed, big 5-star Jordan Seaton, brought in 5 or 6 other transfers that are set to start. I mean, you're banking on, again, that year 2 leap and the fact that, again, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that Shedeur is successful.
All right, who you got at number 5?
All right, I'm kind of staring at my board here. I'm kind of perusing a couple different options. Do I go with a high upside guy like you did? Do I roll with, an injury concern guy, but I think, could put up huge stats in a Big 12 offense? I think I'm going to ride with the fun. I'm going to ride with a guy who I frankly, I just am excited to watch. And I think that if the mania is real, then I'm going to be having a good time. And I'm rolling with Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee.
Iamaleava. To it.
I'm going to ride with Nico. Give it to me.
Love it. Wow.
Nico mania, baby.
So this is a guy who, if he lives up to the hype, and I think we can be perfectly honest here, a lot of the hype is based on him signing the first truly huge NIL deal. If he lives up to it, he's going to be a legend. If he's just okay, it will go down as like a bitter disappointment. But you know how I feel about this, Jesse. I think he's going to make their offense a lot more diverse than it was last year. I actually don't know if he's going to put up massive passing. And maybe I'm basing too much on his first start against Iowa, but I thought he made really good choices with the ball against an Iowa defense that is very disciplined and well structured. So he was running it a lot more, handing off a lot more, and was an efficient passer in that game, but didn't put up massive numbers, but did what needed to be done to win the game, and they won it 35-0. So I think with Nico, what happens when he gets into a game where he has to throw a ton and has to throw them to a win? We don't know yet, sort of like the Avery Johnson thing, but I think you got a good one here.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some unknowns. There's also going to be, I think we could agree, there's probably going to be 5 or 6 games where Tennessee has a 50-yard touchdown, because hype will just schemes it up. And so, it's a layups, it's a, threes and dunks sort of offense. And that's perfect for Nico. And so he'll run around, he'll give me some yards with his legs, and then he's just going to, Tennessee's an underlining, thing about the Vols this year is that the receiving core should be much better than it was a year ago. While Joe Milton wasn't as advertised. I know you were excited about it a year ago. Some other folks, took some Heisman futures on him. Did not pan out, but partly that was because Tennessee's receiving core just badly missed, Hyatt and Tillman. And this year they bring in Braswell from Tulane. Brew McCoy's healthier. You got the kid from Oregon, Dante Thornton, who was banged up a year ago. He's a stretch the field deep threat guy. Mikey Matthews, 5-star freshman. So Nico's got a lot of support. That's a strong cast of characters around him. So I like my upside here. I'm banking obviously that he's gonna live up to the hype. So hopefully the $8 million man will do it.
So if you want to follow Nico's first year as a starter better than anybody else, the place to do it is VolQuest. That's On3's Tennessee site. Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, they do incredible work there. If you'd like to be a member of VolQuest or any of our other team sites, use the code Andy1 and get your first month for $1. That's right, $1 for your first month, whether it's you're a Tennessee fan who wants to subscribe to VolQuest, you are an Alabama fan that wants to subscribe to Bama Online, Ohio State fan, Letterman Row, Notre Dame fan, Blue and Gold. We got something for you. Nebraska fan, Husker Online, want to pay attention to Dillon Raiola, who we got 5 more picks apiece. Will Dillon Raiola show up in our picks? Well, if you're a Husker Online subscriber, you'll definitely know everything that happens involving Dillon Raiola. So use the code Andy1, $1 for your first month. Come on to On3. All right, Jesse. Back half of the draft. A lot of big names still out there. And again, a lot of it I think is because of the scoring system. We're going to get torched on Twitter when our teams come out because people were going to be mad no matter what. Now, my favorite is when people got mad last year, and this happened a lot because we put out, like, there was a graphic with my team and a graphic with your team, and people just couldn't figure out that it was a draft.
Right.
And so they'd be like, how come you didn't pick Caleb Williams? I'm like, because Jesse picked Caleb Williams. Like, that's why I picked Drake May, because he picked Caleb Williams.
Reading it as we are well versed in, Andy, on the internet. Reading is hard.
Yes, reading very hard, but drafting quarterbacks not hard. Like, I am looking at the list right now. I'm looking at my board, and I'm feeling really good about 5 or 6 more guys. Like, this is gonna be deep draft. All right, so I am going back and forth on this next pick. When in doubt, pick the dudes who have really good receivers to throw to. Noah Fifita at Arizona has one of the best receivers in the country to throw to in Tedoroya McMillan. T-Mac. Give me Noah Fifita. This is a guy who took over the starting job midseason last year. Once he became the starter, Arizona really took off. He also is the guy who basically kept Arizona's team together after Jed Fish left for Washington. And the core of that group still together. Noah Fifita is going to put up big numbers this year in the Big 12. They might win the Big 12. We don't know. But I am very excited to see what Noah Fifita does.
I mean, you just drafted the Blues Brothers. That's what you got, Andy. I mean, it's a 2-man band there for the Wildcats, and if they have any hopes of winning the Big 12 in year one, it's going to ride on the shoulders of Fifita. He may only be about 5'10", but he can sling it, and he threw that pill all around a year ago, and the fact that he and McMillan stayed around, in this transfer portal era, didn't follow Jed Fish to Washington. That's a boon for Brent Brennan's program. And Fifita's on record that he's bought into kind of everything that Brennan's selling there. So I love that. That's a good pick. He was kind of a guy that if I wasn't picking Nico last time, he was kind of next up on that board for me.
All right. What is your next pick?
Do I go with another one of these, ballyhoo transfers? Do I stick with a guy who's missed a lot of time? But I think it would be a reach to go for one of these. So I'm going to go a little bit safer. And I just think, again, what you just said, receivers. Are you surrounded by a bunch of really good players? Check. Are you playing in a fun offense? Check. Do you have a specific skill set that this particular offense last year lacked? Check. My one cross is that he hasn't actually been named the starter yet, but he's going to be the starter. Will Howard, Ohio State.
I thought you were going here. I was hoping you'd leave it because I was going to say, speaking of guys with really good receivers, I'll take Will Howard. But I like this pick a lot. Obviously, he's got Emeka Ibuka to throw to. He's got Carnell Tate, and Jeremiah Smith is going to be unbelievable. He's in Chip Kelly's offense now. And the thing about Will Howard, this is what you mentioned, the skill set that they lacked last year. Kyle McCord was not that big of a run threat. Will Howard is a monster of a human being.
And Ryan Day has, been effusive in his praise, Andy, this offseason about how Howard has changed his body. That, he is still big, strong, but that he looks leaner, that he's moving differently. And that little stat I alluded to is that Ohio State's bugaboo a year ago is that they were bad in the red zone. They were just not efficient. They had to settle for way too many field goals because Kyle McCord could not throw in tight windows and could not hurt opponents with his legs. Now, obviously, they're going to run the ball a lot with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, but I still think Howard's dual threat talents are going to be utilized, especially in Chip Kelly's offense. So, again, I'm banking on a guy that hadn't officially been named the starter, but all signs in Columbus point to the fact that, because they brought him in from Kansas State, he will be the guy. So give me Will Howard.
I love it. I love it. And this is interesting with Will Howard and with Dillon Gabriel because of the situation. It's not that they were bad. It's that the reality of the economics forced this situation because you had mega recruits with very high ceilings in Avery Johnson at Kansas State and in Jaxson Arnold at Oklahoma. Those guys have NIL deals too. Could you afford to have both on your roster? And the answer is probably no. So that's why Will Howard's at Ohio State, and Will Howard's getting ka-ching to go to Ohio State.
Yeah, I think almost a really simple way to kind of distill it for our viewers and fans here is that imagine if, everyone knows about the franchise tag in the NFL. Imagine if each team just had one.
Yeah.
And basically that's what these college programs are up against, specifically at the quarterback position. You would love to have Will Howard and Avery Johnson on the roster if you're Chris Kleiman at Kansas State. But the economics just do not make that plausible. Ohio State's going to run up against this very issue a year from now when it's Julian Sayin and Air Nolan and, Devin Brown still on the roster. Oh, and they're bringing in another 5-star from the 2025 class. So it's a difficult deal. Howard lands at a great spot at Ohio State, so I think he's going to have a big season.
So we go from the only in 2024 situation to the throwback. My next pick took the more traditional route to a starting role where he signed with a school, he stayed at that school, he sat behind somebody who was really good, waited his turn, and now it's his time. I think you know who I'm talking about, Jesse. That's Garrett Nussmeier, LSU Tiger, replacing Heisman Trophy winner Jayden Daniels. We know that LSU has not seriously upgraded its talent on defense. The Tigers are going to have to score a lot of points to win games this year. Garrett Nussmeier is going to have to be really good. They brought in CJ Daniels, the receiver transfer from Liberty. Kyron Lacey's still there. They're going to be able to throw the ball around. I am very confident Garrett Nussmeier. Also, Garrett Nussmeier, a pretty good athlete. So will he be as good of a runner as Jayden Daniels? No, he's not going to be as good of a runner as Jayden Daniels, but he's going to put up numbers.
I like it. I mean, you're again, who are you surrounded by? LSU's got receivers. That's not a problem. Kyron Lacey, you bring in the kid from Liberty. Liberty did, my guy Caden Salter did lose his top target from a year ago, who is now returns home to Baton Rouge. They got a really good tight end. He's not gonna, I think he's a dark horse Heisman guy for some folks' list. I don't think LSU is gonna have a third Heisman Trophy quarterback in 5 or 6 years, but I do think that Nuss is going to have to put up a ton of yards because the defensive coaches may look differently, but the personnel is not all that changed, and so I think there's still going to be some growing pains there for the Tigers defensively.
Still looking at this list, Jesse. There's a lot of we're going to leave off some names that are going to piss some people off and that we're going to regret not taking.
Do we think Texas fans are already just lighting us on fire because
they've already stopped watching? They've stopped watching.
We just haven't mentioned Quinn Ewers' name at all. What do Missouri fans they believe Brady Cook is a Heisman kind of guy. Well, you know what? I'm going to go to the Longhorn State, but I'm not going to Texas, and I'm not going to Texas A&M. I'm taking Jordan McCloud at Texas State.
That was my Group of 5 guy.
They ran off.
How dare you?
This is the G5 version of economics. They told TJ Finley to hit the road because they were like, oh, this guy from James Madison is suddenly available. I don't know how Jordan McCloud isn't at Auburn or a school like that, frankly.
Sunbelt Player of the Year last year.
I just, he again, he's a dual threat guy. This is a stat grab for sure. But Jordan McCloud is, Texas State in that offense. Love it. Give me. I'm the G5 groupie in this draft so far. So I'm trying to hoard them as I can.
Now, I feel like I got to take my G5 guy now. No, I'm going to wait. Because I'm going to see if you're just going to load up on G5 guys. But no, and producer River is texting me suggestions. His suggestion I'm not taking, well, I'll tell you who it is after. And I may regret not taking him too. I may regret not it. But since you left him for me, I will take him because I like this quarterback. I like his receivers. I will go to Lone Star State, and I'm going to Austin. Give me Quinn Ewers.
Yeah. I had Quinn last year. You know, it was a little snake bit there.
Can he stay healthy? He's missed games the first 2 years as starter.
Yeah, can he stay healthy? Is he going to get, if he does get dinged up, does he then get Wally pipped by Arch Manning? I don't know. But he certainly, again, when you're talking about supporting cast, I mean, you bring in Amari from Alabama, the tight end, Isaiah Bond. Texas already had a couple 5-stars that are now going to be sophomores. The kid from Oregon State, Silas Bolden, is kind of a slot guy who's going to, I think, do a lot of little stuff for the Longhorns. So there's certainly no qualms with that pick. I mean, that's a good pick. Who did River try to tell you?
I can't tell you yet because
okay.
It was a group of 5 quarterback. I still haven't picked one. I have 2 that I'm looking at. The one he suggested is not one I'm looking at. But we'll talk about it after all 10 of our picks are done because I don't trust you to not snag somebody that I'm trying to get, especially in the you're trying to take all the good group of 5 quarterbacks and not leave me with anybody. But fortunately, the group of 5 quarterback depth is just as deep. It feels like I've got a good feeling about a couple of guys, so I don't think you can take them all. Who's your next pick?
All right. Again, I've teased the cut. I may wait until my final pick to grab one of these injury guys, just because again we've kind of talked about it. Durability is particularly important in this exercise, and that hurt me a year ago with some of my guys who missed a whole bunch of games. So I'm going to go a little bit safer, but it's still a guy that puts his body on the line each week. Was not the full-time starter, Andy, a year ago until a couple games into the season, but let's go, baby. Neil Brown, West Virginia. I'm going Garrett Greene. I don't know if our fans know this, but the little white lightning there, this is a guy who, you talk about wheels. He actually led all quarterbacks a year ago, despite not being the starter for the full time, led all quarterbacks in terms of rushing yards. He had 13 rushing touchdowns, I believe, something like that. So the passing still needs some development. He threw 16 touchdowns. But they basically only ask Greene to throw screens and bombs. That's just what their offense is. They don't go over the middle of the field at all.
Bama and Jalen Milroe last year, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just screens and bombs. And so, he's kind of the white chocolate version of Jalen Milroe. So similar skill set. They have obviously a tough schedule, and so they're going to have to score to win because they lost a lot defensively from the portal. We'll see if he can do it. I'm banking on, again, year 2 development growth. Neil Brown needs to keep winning, even though he got kind of that, faux extension this offseason. So give me Garrett Greene.
That is a good choice, especially given the scoring system. I've got 2 picks left. One of them has to be from the group of 5. I'm gonna save my group of 5 pick for number 10. I got one more pick that I can take a power conference quarterback. I've got 5 guys that I'd really, really like to pick in this group. This is a tough one, but I'm going to go back to choose the guys with the receivers can get it done. Give me Missouri's Brady Cook. Throw in a Luther Burden III. I just think, another situation, much like Garrett Nussmeier, where they're going to have to score points because Missouri lost its defensive coaches to LSU, but Missouri lost a ton of talent off that defense. They had a first-round edge rusher. They had 2 NFL corners. They had Tyron Hopper, who was a tackling machine at linebacker. Now, they have brought guys in through the portal to help ease those losses, but that doesn't mean their defense is going to be as good as it was last season, and that puts more pressure on Brady Cook to throw them to wins. Now, I think they're going to be able to run the ball really well, too. They had Marcus Carroll come in from Georgia State. They've got the Noel from Appalachian State. So, like the loss of Cody Schrader, I'm not as worried about. I think their offensive line is going to be good, but I think this all bodes well for Brady Cook to put up good numbers.
Hey, I mean, when you're throwing to Luther Burden and Theo Weiss, you're going to put up some stats. And, and Cook, it can be sneaky with his legs. He's not going to give you a ton there.
Oh, but, go back to that bowl game when he was first named early in his career. I'm trying to remember. I think they played Army, maybe. But basically, Missouri was running the option with Brady Cook in a bowl game, and he was really good at it. So, yeah, I like his legs, too. I just think he's got the targets that he's probably airing it out quite a bit.
It's a solid pick. All right, I'm going a little risky here. I've teased it enough. There's 3 guys, and we can talk about, because we're not going to draft all these guys, but there's 3 guys that I think, 3 or 4 that kind of qualify for the same thing, where, the upside, if they can stay healthy, is tremendous. The problem is they have not stayed healthy. And so I'm going to bank on maybe this is the year. The Arrested Development, it hasn't worked, but maybe it'll work for us. I'm going with Jalen Daniels, Kansas. So I know he lost Colt Nicky, the coordinator there, but you bring in Grimes. They're gonna do everything they can to make sure that Daniels has a big senior season. Dual threat guy. When he's been healthy, he's been good.
Right, and that is the question.
And Kansas returns a ton offensively, and defensively, frankly, they're just not very good. They have to score to win. So I'm banking on, maybe, against his prior durability issues. He's a guy who's only played 6 or 7 games each season. Hopefully it lasts a full year this year. Give me Jalen Daniels.
I like it. One of the most exciting players in college football. If you haven't played as Jalen Daniels in the video game, I highly recommend it. The Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal combo is a lot of fun, especially if you're running a hurry-up offense with the Jayhawks. But the durability is the concern there. He's missed games every season. It's part of the reason why you didn't take Quinn Ewers and I did. And so I think we're good to go with that. I have to pick a group of 5 quarterback now. You have taken 3 really good ones, but there's a few more that you left on the table. I like mine that I just got. Seth Henigan from Memphis. 37 total touchdowns last year. He threw for 32. He ran for 5. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He also completed 67% of his passes, and it was not a whole bunch of dink and dunk kind of situations. This dude can sling it. I love this pick. And I would have loved Aguiar from Appalachian State as well, either one of those guys. So what River had suggested to me was Malachi Nelson, who was a big-time recruit at USC, who
hasn't been named starter yet.
Yeah, was not going to win the job at USC. He's at Boise State now. He might start at Boise State. Again, like you said, we don't know if he's going to start at Boise State yet. So that would have been a really interesting one. But Seth Henigan from Memphis, I think, is going to be a solid pick, if not a spectacular pick, depending on how things go. We'll get our Seth Henigan, Byrum Brown showdown at some point in the American, I would think.
Yeah, another guy, I'm not going to pick him here, but another G5 guy that was certainly on my board. Well, excuse me. I just screwed that up. He's not that. You got to still train our brains, Andy. Stuff's difficult. I was going to say,
you were going to say KJ Jefferson, weren't you?
No, I was going to say Preston Stone.
Oh, no, he's in the ACC now.
ACC now, yeah, SMU in the ACC. But KJ's an interesting option. I got the last pick here, so I guess I can. By the way,
Memphis and USF playing October 11th. It's a Friday night. That's going to be a hell of a Friday night game. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, that is going to be fun. All right, Andy, my last pick. Do I go with another injury guy, like a Riley Leonard, who only had 3 touchdowns a year ago because he couldn't stay healthy. But I think he is going to, he would offer that dual threat ability. What about a Cam Rising, who missed the entire season last year? Not going to go with either of those guys. Not going to go with Drew Alar either, even though he was on my team a year ago. Because frankly, I just am not a huge believer in just that offense. And I think also he's going to be, Colton Nicky's on record that they're going to play Bo. Bo
the backup.
Perbula is going to get some
the Jason
snaps,
Bean,
so.
the Jason Bean of Penn State.
Yeah, he's going to get some snaps. So I'm of 2 guys right here, Andy. So I'll kind of lay this out, and you can tell me if I swung and missed or if I made the home run hit. Do I go with Jaxson Arnold at Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm.
High upside, just like Nico. He's a guy who threw the ball, I think, almost 50 times in the bowl game, in his first career start. Did throw some interceptions, but also a couple touchdowns. He's surrounded by a bunch of weapons there in Norman. The Sooners are kind of loaded at receiver. Offensive line, that is a bit of a concern. Or do I go with Connor Wegman, another former 5-star?
Durability concerns.
You know what? I'm riding with the upside. This is the all upside team. So give me Jaxson Arnold, Oklahoma.
I was hoping you'd say that, one, because Oklahoma fans were going to torch us if we left him off. But 2, he's going to put up big numbers. I have no doubt that he's going to put up big numbers. And Jaxson Arnold was the quarterback in that class that if you talk to coaches, he's the guy they wanted. And Oklahoma got him. It's why they let Dillon Gabriel walk, which is, when you think about what Dillon Gabriel is capable of, you've got to be very confident in what you have to let him go somewhere else. So I think they feel very good about Jaxson Arnold. I'm glad you made that choice. That one, I'm probably going to regret not picking him. I think I'm going to feel very bad that I didn't pick him because I think he's going to do massive numbers for you.
Fingers crossed, Danny. Fingers crossed.
All right. Let us talk about some guys we did not pick because I think there's going to be some regrets here. You mentioned Connor Wegman. If Connor Wegman's healthy for a year, I bet he puts up big numbers at A&M.
Yeah, I think Connor Wegman's in that same pot with a Grayson McCall. I think Grayson McCall could put up huge numbers at NC State with all the guys that they've brought in, on that side of the ball, plus KC Concepcion. But Wegman, and you also look at A&M's schedule by SEC standards, it's fairly favorable. And so I think Wegman's a guy that certainly, we could have some regrets. Grayson McCall, Riley Leonard. Did you have any do not draft guys?
I didn't. And I'm looking at this. Here's another one that I think we may regret is Miller Moss. We didn't take Lincoln Riley's quarterback. That's
he might lose his job.
Well, that is okay. So they have Maivea, who was at UNLV last year, or Iamaleava. There's a chance that, he could take the job. But I don't know. And maybe I'm just putting too much stock in the bowl game. But Miller Moss looked very in command of that offense and looked like he had the respect of his teammates. He looked like a guy ready to take over the job.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. A guy that was I thought about taking multiple times, but then because of the scoring system, Kyron Drones, River, he was a guy that was kind of on my radar if I was going to go there. Another guy who, would have been a sneaky Twitter would have been like, what are you doing? Because they just don't pay attention. That's Haynes King at Georgia Tech, who put up.
I think that's going to wind up being a mistake by us not taking him.
He led the ACC in touchdowns, but he also led the ACC in turnovers. And so if you're doing all those minuses each week.
I believe he had 13 interceptions last year. It was a lot.
16.
Oh, 16. That's right.
Yeah. So, but he's a guy that if it clicks there in Atlanta, he could easily lead the ACC in total touchdowns, and he gives you obviously a threat with his legs as well. So
how about Haynes King's opponent in the week 0 game that is now less than 2 weeks away? DJ Uiagalelei, who 2 years ago, if we'd done this, would have been a top 3 pick.
He was on my no draft list.
You said it's do not draft.
Yeah, and it's I just in this exercise, Andy, I just think that he's limited in terms of the huge stats that he puts up. If you look at his career numbers, they're pretty much the same across the board. He's gonna, throw around 21 to 25 touchdowns. He's gonna, have a low completion percentage and not throw for a ton of yards. If they do lean on his legs, maybe he could provide some more stats. But they love Florida State. Everything out of Tallahassee is how much they like all these running backs. So they could be, really run heavy. So I just don't know how many opportunities DJU would have. Similarly, that I wasn't gonna. I think a couple of years ago, one of us probably would have said, "Hey, upside, let's go with Cade Klubnik." He was another guy that just kind of, was not.
I need to see
board.
it from Clemson's offense. Like I'll be honest, Cade Klubnik wasn't even on the board.
Yeah, he wasn't on my board either. So
yeah, so. Another one that we just don't know about because he hasn't really gotten to play yet, but he's now going to be a starter at a different school is Brock Vandagriff at Kentucky. Back up at Georgia. We don't know what he's going to look like in this offense. He's got Byrum Brown and Dane Key to throw to. He could be really good or he could be average. We just don't know. That's one that I think is tough to pass on. Another one that everybody's going to laugh when I say this. This guy could actually be really good. We just haven't gotten a chance to see it yet. Cade McNamara at Iowa. He was hurt in the preseason. He hurt his hamstring in the preseason last year, so he wasn't really full strength when he was playing. Then he tears his ACL. We've never really seen him healthy at Iowa. We saw him at Michigan in an offense that, like we said with JJ, didn't ask him to do very much. He could be pretty good, though.
Yeah, he's another one. I mean, they bring in, what was it, Brendan Sullivan from Northwestern?
From Northwestern, yeah.
Yeah, like could how what sort of hold does he have on that starting job? That would be. Did you see the stat that I tweeted out the other day, Andy, about Iowa? This is again kind of teasing my preseason updated top 25. The little one thing to know. This is almost too remarkable to even be true, but it is. In the last 3 seasons, Iowa has as many passing touchdowns, 28, as wins.
Wow.
The Hawkeyes have won 28 games in the last 3 years, and they've thrown for 28 touchdowns. And they don't run a triple option.
Right, and 28 touchdowns through the air is an average season for a college football team. And it's taken them 3.
They've thrown for more interceptions. They've thrown for 29 picks. I mean, it's just it's insane, the voodoo that Kirk Ferentz is pulling off there. So maybe McNamara is a guy that could put up some numbers. You mentioned KJ Jefferson. I think that in a fresh offense, running Gus's stuff. You have kind of the 3-headed monster there with Penny Boone and RJ Harvey. Yeah, I mean that could be a fun deal. That could be one that we look back and say, hey, again, he was on my team a year ago, and it just did not pan out.
You got burned. Yeah,
I got burned.
So the one that I almost picked toward the end as a kind of flyer, because this is the guy when you talk to people, they're like, okay, who's the one who's got that mix of skills that if it really takes off, we're all going to be like, well, how did we miss this? It's Lenora Sellers at South Carolina.
Great athlete. You kind of wonder, you talked about this early in your picks with Jalen Milroe and then Shedeur Sanders, protection,
right? Can they protect him? And if they can't, it's bad. So
right, yeah, he's a guy that maybe when we do this next year in 25, you're saying, oh, okay, we saw it last year. Now maybe South Carolina brings in some more guys. Nick Harbor is going to be a junior. Maybe this is kind of a year too soon, but 12 months from now, he's a guy that's back on the radar.
If you haven't played with South Carolina in the video game yet, Nick Harbor is a fun one, except that he doesn't catch everything. But when he does catch it, holy crap, it's unbelievable.
I have not dialed the Gamecocks up yet.
Here's another one. I wasn't going to pick him, but I am interested because this is a guy that's coming to the season with a massive chip on his shoulder. Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord. Could the Honda Accord get some upgrades in the ACC? He's throwing to Rondé Gadsden. Like, it's not Marvin Harrison, but he's also not playing against Michigan.
Yeah, and Syracuse's schedule is a bakery of cupcakes.
It's manageable. Yeah.
It is quite manageable. And they brought in some transfers from Georgia receivers that they seem to like. Yeah, that's not a bad one, because you look at his stats last season, Andy, and it was a disappointment for Ohio State because of what they've had with Fields and Stroud and even dating back before that. But he still threw, I think, for almost 30 touchdowns and 3,500 yards. So if he even does that again, that would certainly merit draftable consideration in this little fantasy deal.
Yep. So we'll see. We're gonna get just abused when our teams come out. I'm willing to accept that. Will I win? I don't know. I think you've taken a very bold strategy here, because you grab those group of 5 guys that are going to put up bonzo numbers, and you may beat me there, but I feel like my team is very strong. I feel like this is a loaded group. And look, if Milroe gets better protection, if Shedeur gets better protection, I am kicking your ass.
This was fun. I mean, the reason this whole deal was fun is that, we just have no idea which way it's going. So
yeah. Well,
the phone's going off in here.
That's a sign. It's telling you it's Jaxson Arnold calling saying, I'm excited to be a Team Jesse guy.
That's
right. The one I think I'm going to wind up regretting. So sorry, Oklahoma fans. Jesse's going to get the phone. We're going to go.
We're good. All right. Let's roll.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for hanging with us through the quarterback draft. Feel free to yell at us about our picks on social media or in the chat. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.